Hi, Great Tiger here, and welcome back to my series on the unique mechanics of each of the races in Warhammer 2. Today, we look at the Wood Elves, which recently went from one of the worst to play to among my favourites. The Wood Elves were added as a DLC in Game 1, and have been long overdue their Old World update. Well, fortunately it was worth the wait, as the rework which came alongside the Twisted and the Twilight has transformed them from a boring, restrictive race into an enjoyable race with varied lords and rosters, along with a much improved campaign mechanics. This is the final episode in this series until Game 3 has been released, and I put it off until now so I'd have a chance to play with the recent changes. So let's get started as always by taking a look at the mechanics for the race as a whole. The first race-wide mechanic is the Council Officers, where the player can assign lords and heroes to different officers in order to gain different bonuses. This is much the same as the system used by the Vampire Coast, and is a nice addition, though quite strange thematically. To improve upon this system, I would add some form of increasing bonuses over time. The longer a lord or hero holds a position, the greater the bonuses they can unlock. This could possibly be balanced, with a lord or hero losing favour, and as such bonuses, if they lose multiple battles, because as it currently stands, once you have assigned a lord to a position, you very rarely change them. The second mechanic is the Wood Roots. This is effectively the same as the movement mechanic that the Beastmen, Greenskins, Dwarves and Skaven have, and simply allows the player to take shortcuts through the difficult to pass sections of the map. It's a simple mechanic that has been enhanced by the Wood Elves' access to the new Deep Roots mechanic. This new system allows the player to move an army from any sacred woodland to any other sacred woodland on the map immediately. To prevent spamming, it comes with a cooldown, which can however be reduced by researching new technologies. This is one of the highlights of the Wood Elves changes, allowing for interaction with so many races and solving what was one of their biggest issues, feeling like they were penned in Athelloren. The next mechanic, and for me the most interesting, is the Forest Healing mechanic, where the player must control the heathland regions around the world's sacred woodlands, in order to heal them and unlock powerful bonuses. For each heathland controlled next to a woodland, you gain 1 point towards healing the area. Points can also be accumulated through quests, technologies, and through fighting battles. Once you have accumulated enough points to heal the forest, you can trigger a quest battle, and upon victory, earn great bonuses across your faction. Interwoven into the woodland mechanic are new encounters, where any area of the woodland or adjacent heathlands will be highlighted as an enemy army musters. If you can reach the spot in time and engage the enemy before they are prepared, then you trigger an ambush battle where you can surprise them, making the battle far easier. If you are too slow to respond, then the enemy starts marching across your territory causing havoc, and any battle with them will mean facing a much larger and stronger force. These elements together form a wonderful new mechanic that makes the Wood Elves campaigns feel fresh and rewarding, and it's a mechanic that could be adapted for other races, such as the Beastmen for their Bloodgrounds, and for the Dwarves as a rebuilding of their lost holds. An additional mechanic that does not quite apply to the entire race, but to each of the Tree Spirit factions, Durthu and Drycha, is Aspects. This reworks the Greenskin Scrap mechanic to apply to Tree Spirit units, allowing them to change their type based on the player's current needs. This costs a small amount of gold and can be updated at any time. It's a nice bonus for the Tree Spirits, which is in line with the lore and helps add the player when going for themed Tree Spirit armies. Well, that's the race mechanics covered, so let's move on to the individual legendary lords. First up, we have Orion, who has the God King of Athelloren effect, which grants +10 leadership in forest battles and reduces the upkeep of all cavalry units by 15%. It also enables the Wild Hunt event. Unfortunately, Orion doesn't have any major unique mechanic, and the Wild Hunt event is rather underwhelming, so I would propose a new mechanic that reimagines the Wild Hunt to be similar to a Wood Elf Crusade, which is also tied into a mechanic that unlocks access to units and combat bonuses from the different high realms of Athelloren. As the player gains territory, they will be able to unlock access to individual high realms on a new user interface. This provides combat or campaign bonuses related to the High Realms lore. and also allows the Wild Hunt to gather units from them when it is declared. The player chooses a target province for the hunt to focus on, and a timer is triggered that forces the player to complete the hunt quickly, for the swifter the hunt, the greater the rewards, though the hunt must be called from within the borders of Athelloren. Orion's army would be the only army allowed to perform the hunt, but he would be joined by a hunting party, much in the same way that greenskin armies can be joined by War armies. Orion's hunting party would be filled from units from the high realms that the player has so far unlocked, up to a size that matches that of his main army. The hunt then begins, and the hunting party remains until the target province is under the player's control, or until the hunt timer expires. The same units can appear in multiple hunts, and they will accumulate experience over time. Eventually, they can even be recruited into your main armies. Our second legendary lord is Durthu, who has the Elder effect, that reduces the recruitment cost of Branch Wraith heroes by 50% and increases the melee attack of all armies by 10 during forest battles. Much like Orion, he has no unique mechanic, so I would give him a new mechanic called the Spirit of the Oak. Durthu would gain spirit with each victory and through healing woodlands, which would accumulate and unlock tiers on a progress bar. There would be 11 tiers to unlock, with some giving campaign or combat bonuses for the tree spirit units, while others would grant access to new army abilities for use in battles. There would be 5 new abilities to unlock. The first ability, the Restless Forest, would be unlocked at tier 3 and allow the player to summon a unit of dryads to the battlefield. The dryads would not deteriorate over time, and this ability can be used once per battle, but receives an additional usage at tier 5. The second ability, Ancient Spirit, would be unlocked at tier 5 and allows the player to summon a treeman to the battlefield. The treeman would not deteriorate over time. The ability can be used once per battle. The third ability, Call of the Wild, would be unlocked at tier 7 and allows the player to turn lesser beasts from the enemy army against their own for a short period. During this time, the player takes control of the affected unit. This ability can be used once per battle, with an additional usage unlocked at tier 9. The fourth ability, the Woodlands Beasts, would unlock at tier 9 and allows the player to summon a unit of feral great stags to the battlefield. The stags do not deteriorate over time. This ability can be used once per battle, with an additional usage unlocked at tier 11. The fifth and final ability, One with Nature, would provide all ranged Wood Elf units with bonuses to ammunition, range damage, and accuracy as long as they were within 40 meters of any tree spirit unit. The next legendary lord is a pair of characters used as one, the Sisters of Twilight, who come with the Mage Queen's Authority effect, which provides an additional 10% ammunition for all armies, and access to the Volley of Kurnos ability for all Hawk Rider units. In addition, the Sisters have access to the Forge of Daith mechanic, where Daith crafts unique weapons and armor every 10 turns, which the player can choose as a gift. The player can then choose to upgrade those gifts after winning battles with either powerful short-term effects or weaker longer-term effects. This mechanic was quite disappointing, especially when you look at the work that was put into the mechanic received by Throt the Unclean. As such, Creative Assembly have announced that they're going to rework and improve the system. Hopefully, we will get something more fitting. What improvements would you make to this mechanic, or what new mechanic would you add to the Sisters? Now the final legendary lord is Drycha the Briar Maven, who has the Dryads of Dyspathy effect that reduces the upkeep of all Dryad, Treekin, and Treeman units by 10%, but increases the upkeep of all Elf units by 10%. She also suffers a minus 40 diplomatic point penalty in relation to other Wood Elf factions, and all Elf units in her faction have reduced combat abilities as they are under a hex that forces them to fight for her. Much like Orion and Durthu, she has no unique mechanic, so we would give her a new mechanic called the Creeping Thicket, where she gains a new corruption type called the Dark Thicket and a new resource called Malice that is generated each turn and can be boosted by certain buildings and actions. The Dark Thicket spreads naturally to neighbouring regions and causes enemy armies attrition and slows their campaign movement once it passes a certain threshold. This corruption can be enhanced by agents, buildings and technologies, The Dark Thicket also has an effect on the battlefield, so that any forest battles in a heavily affected area would see the enemies suffer movement and melee defense penalties. The Malice resource can be spent on campaign combat upgrades in a new user interface, or on spreading corruption via a corruption bomb mechanism similar to the spreading of plagues that the Skaven currently have. The upgrades start off cheap, but get increasingly more expensive for the more powerful changes and the new unit unlocks. So, the Wood Elves find themselves in a very good place after their Old World update, and it will be interesting to see if they get any new content as part of Game 3. I certainly hope that we have not seen the last of the Wood Elves, even if we just get additional FLC lords from this point forward. Well, that wraps up the race mechanics series for Warhammer 2, and it's time to start looking ahead to Game 3 and the possible races and mechanics that we might see. In the coming months, we will start speculating on those races and proposing unique systems that could fit their lore. For now, if you liked the video, please click like and subscribe to help out the channel. I'd like to wrap up, as always, with a shout out to Hot Apple Pie for his patronage. Thanks for the continued support, mate. I'm Drycha, and I'll catch you next time.